On this week's edition of the Booth Review, guess what we're talking about? The Hail Mary.
We also got Big Fletcher's heavyweight championship belt up for grabs.
Gee, I wonder who that's going to, because it was maybe the greatest number 1 versus number 2 overall pick matchup ever.
And it's also Tell the Truth Monday. How can this coaching staff keep this team grounded and ready to go face the New York Giants?
All coming up on the Booth Review. Welcome into a very special Monday edition of the Booth Review podcast. I'm Bram Weinstein with Big Fletch, London Fletcher. Wow.
Wow.
That was a privilege and an honor to get to call something like that. I believe Elias said it's the first and only Hail Mary that they can find that this team has had, that they won on since at least 1970. I was racking my brain. I couldn't think of one. You know, I've watched every game this team's played since I was a kid. I can't remember one. I'm like, maybe Theismann had one, maybe Sonny had one. I can't remember one, and I don't believe we've ever had one. So we witnessed history yesterday.
Yes, we did. I'm still recovering. I don't know about you, just recovering from what we saw yesterday. Just like unbelievable play, unbelievable moment, unbelievable atmosphere in the stadium. But the fact that they couldn't find one dating all the way back to 1970.
Yeah.
I know for me, that was the singular most iconic play that I've witnessed during my time here in Washington as a player, now as a broadcaster, former player, all those things. Man, what a moment.
It really was pretty wild. I'm trying to remember, the you like that game really comes to mind, but that's not a moment. It was a game, a comeback.
Right.
I was in Dallas when Santana caught the 2 passes on Monday Night Football that stole a game. Actually, this was actually quite similar, that the Bears Washington was getting dominated in that game, but had these 2 crazy moments with Santana and Mark Brunell. Chicago was getting dominated yesterday. When we talk about that, Chicago was getting dominated and nearly stole it. The wrong team was about to win yesterday, really, in the way that the game had been played. Santana had another moment in overtime against Jacksonville, where he caught a pass, ran for a touchdown. Sean Taylor's had some really incredible moments. One against Philadelphia where he picks up a fumble, full stride, running the other way. The memorable one against Dallas where they had like a blocked kick.
Troy Vincent blocked
a kick.
Sean recovers it and runs and gets a face mask, and then we're able to kick a field goal and win that game.
This is the second one this year, though. I mean, honestly, I would put up Jayden's throw to Terry in Cincinnati Monday Night Football. I know it wasn't a Hail Mary, but it was very similar in terms of kind of putting a game away late, a moment that like the percentage that it would be completed is very low. Like it's a low percentage throw, just an amazing moment. And there's something really, it just goes without saying there's something very special going on here. It's a special team that has special players, that has a bond that's hard to describe, and now special things are happening to them.
Yeah, just the whole sequence of, all right, the Bears, they take the lead, get the ball back, with 25 seconds left, they take the lead, and then they kick the ball off to Eckler, and we get I think the offense took over with like 20 seconds left, I believe.
Something like that.
Yeah, 20 seconds left, and, incompletion, and you get the big play, the big 13-yard completion, the play prior to the Hail Mary. And that's when a team has really practiced these type of scenarios. They've been in these moments, and now this is an opportunity to go out and execute. The 13-yarder to Terry where, I think it was 5 seconds left, throw it to Terry, he gets out of bounds, gets an extra 13 yards that allowed Jayden to be able to heave that football almost 66 yards to the end zone, and being, Noah Brown being exactly where he needed to be. The Bears executed. That was a teaching tape on how not to defend a Hail Mary, how the Bears defended.
One of their players was in the middle mocking the crowd while the play was happening.
While the play was happening.
Yeah.
Textbook teaching tape on how not to defend a Hail Mary. Conversely, textbook teaching tape on how to execute a Hail Mary play by our offense, man. Just what an unbelievable play.
They've talked a lot about preparation and getting ready to do things like this, and it's always kind of coach speak and, how do you practice stuff like this? But I will go back to, because I'm out here for practice every day.
Right.
And we don't get to see everything anymore, but during training camp we did. And towards the end of training camp, they held a practice. In light of what happened yesterday, They held a practice. It was like a Friday. It was like a run-of-the-mill Friday.
Yeah.
And we were up on the hill, and they were on this new field. And Dan Quinn had a microphone in his hands, and he was just yelling out scenarios. He was going, there's 20 seconds left. We have 2 timeouts. The ball's at the 35. Go.
Right.
And Jayden comes out, and Cliff Kingsbury's calling plays, and then they run through that scenario, and then he goes, all right, there's 48 seconds left. We have no timeouts. The ball's at the 15. Go.
Right, yeah.
And they did this for like an hour. And in light of what happened yesterday, where you hear everybody say, we prepared for this, they did. They did. And to your point, go look at where everybody was aligned on the field. They gave themselves a chance. It wasn't like it was a miracle. It's a low percentage play. But Zach Ertz was exactly where he was supposed to be. Noah Brown, who got here at the end of camp, was exactly where he was supposed to be. If it was going to happen, they were prepared for it to happen.
Yeah, and Terry was exactly where he was supposed to be. Now, the Bears did block Terry out. You know, sometimes teams knock the ball forward, you get the ricochet. So Terry was there. Now, the Bears did execute that part, and there were 2 guys boxing out Terry. Not one Bear boxing out Noah Brown, but going back to your point about the practice of those scenarios where they didn't, you saw it in training camp, but they continue those scenarios even during the season. And DQ talked about that when we interviewed him in the post game. And also Jayden talked about that, how they put us in these scenarios in practice and not just your typical, a lot of times you'll work on the Hail Mary play on a, let's call it a Saturday walkthrough. Hey, that play. But for them to be working on these type of scenarios during the practice week on a Tuesday, on a Wednesday or a Thursday and a Friday practice, those, now you're doing it at full speed, full game reps. And it's also the defense getting an opportunity to work on those scenarios as well.
So, and then there's Jayden, okay? So there's 6 seconds left. He calls the play to McLaurin first. Yeah. Cool, calm, perfect throw, out of bounds, 4 seconds, 2 seconds left, gives him a chance. Not a good chance, but a chance, right? And then they snapped the ball to him. He didn't throw it for 12 seconds. Just an absurd amount of time, right? Granted, and I'm sure Chicago's regretting this part too, rushing 3 allowed that to happen. Had they rushed more, there's just no chance it would have extended that long.
They rushed 3 and they had a 4th guy as a spy.
As a spy on him. I don't even know why.
He's not going to run 75 yards, to 60, 65 yards to the end zone. Like, I didn't
Or I guess maybe,
that.
Are they going to try to do a lateral play? And so somebody was up in the middle of the field on the hope, right?
He was, 2 yards away from the line of scrimmage. He didn't, like, a lot of times you might have a guy come. So the scenario we used to do when I was here, defending our 2-minute. So I would line up on one of the receivers, and I would bump one of the receivers, disrupt him to slow him down, and then I would add to the rush. I would become the 4th rusher. But I'm disrupting the receiver first and foremost, slow him down. Then I add to the rush as a 4th rusher, outside contain guy, stuff like that, where a lot of times I may be unblocked. This guy didn't disrupt any receiver. He was, lined up 2-3 yards from the line of scrimmage at the snap, and he just kind of doing his dance and kind of waiting. He could have been in the stands watching the game. He was an innocent bystander in my part, and from my standpoint.
It goes back to, and nobody's perfect here, and we're taping this on Tell the Truth Monday, and I think there's a lot and we can get to it, that I think Dan Quinn and this team's going to talk about was left out there. Because that score should never have come down to that. It really never should have come down. They were dominating them. That score could have been 24-0 after 3.
You talked about that multiple times.
Yeah.
The multiple times during the broadcast,
yes.
and on air and off there. You just you had this look of concern, like, man,
because I've seen it too many times.
We should be destroying this team.
We were about to lose a game we shouldn't have lost.
Yes.
We were a miracle play and 25 seconds away from losing a game they had no business losing. The Bears had no business being in it. But we've seen it before. You let a team stick around. It takes 1 or 2 plays. Yeah. They make one mistake on one defensive play, and DeAndre Swift's gone, and now you got a game. You miss a field goal from 50-plus yards, and now you got a game. Mm-hmm. And that guy's the number 1 pick for a reason. Like, you think he's not going to make any plays at all? He is. And they did, and Washington's fortunate to get away with it. But the better team won, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
But I want to go back to Jayden on that play. So the Bears, I think mistakenly, probably regrettably now, only really rushed 3. So it allowed him to extend the play. He's too athletic to do that, right? So it takes him 12 seconds. He comes around to it. But the point I want to get to is this. Like, he was calm through the entire thing, from the play before to McLaurin to this play. What we're seeing is someone, and we've been saying this for weeks, he has never looked like a rookie. He doesn't act like a rookie. He looks like a veteran, and I don't know what will rattle him if none of this is rattling him. And just go watch his demeanor and how he went about this. It's no wonder good things are happening to him.
California cool. That's the way I describe him. California cool. I would love to be able to have a heart rate monitor on him during these type of moments because, as you mentioned, his heart rate it's like as low as, I don't know what the lowest it could be and you still be alive, so to speak. But, man, it seems to be so low. Even before, he threw it, he's just like he's out on the practice field. I've been here before. No, he hadn't, because this was his first Hail Mary, I think, since high school.
Yes.
Well, yeah, so he's just so calm, cool, and collected. California cool. The situation, the moment was not too big for him. When it happened, even us interviewing him after the game, he's just like, man.
He was still in his uniform.
Still in his uniform, just so cool.
He's like, I don't know. It just kind of happened. How did it? You just had the play of the year. You just had a moment that, very, very, very few people will ever experience at this level. And he's like, yeah, I know. And that's it.
Yeah.
It's the end.
He's special.
He is.
He is special.
He is.
Special talent. The talent is one thing, but just special person for a kid. And I call him a kid, just being 23, still a young man. He's rare.
He's rare. He is rare. I'll get to the comparison in a minute, but I want to stay on the play because it's just so really amazing. Oh, by the way, I think if he ever took up golf, he'd probably win the Masters. He's got the blood pressure level for that.
Right. He's so.
You think he's worried about he has to get up and down on 17? I don't think so.
Or he had to sink a putt to win it, a 20-footer. No problem. No problem. It's to win the Masters.
I think also and we've seen this for weeks now. Listen to this locker room after every one of these games. They were happy. They should have been, right? They should have been.
Yeah.
But it's measured. It remains measured. This is amazing. We're really happy it happened. It's a memory for a lifetime for all of us, fans, us as the broadcasters, players, obviously. Like, all of us are enjoying this, and it's wild to hear our calls on CNN and MSNBC and NBC.
all over.
It's wild to hear that happen because it really was an amazing moment. But listen to them. Like, they've remained. It's insular. It's a bubble. It's about us. We have to get better. Don't get on, as Dan Quinn talks about, the roller coaster. And you even heard that yesterday, that we're just 6-2. We won a game. That was a good game. There's a lot left that we need to deal with. And so this isn't over. We're at the beginning of something here.
And it's special. And then we talk about, and I know they talk about the brotherhood that they have.
Yeah.
I've mentioned this on a couple of occasions where you can see and feel it even if you're watching them from afar. You don't have to be around here. You don't have to be in the building. You don't have to be around them every day to know that they have a special bond, special connection. And it's happening. This happened so quickly with over half the roster turned over.
This is unprecedented.
This is unprecedented.
Happening. Yeah.
But again, it starts with Dan Quinn. He set this culture. He set this connectivity to where those guys just feel so together. They're going to fight to the end with each other, win, lose, or draw. When they get together, they win these games. These we're experiencing the byproduct of what Dan Quinn has put together from a culture and a team building standpoint.
Yeah, it's hard to compare it, but as a kid in the 80s here, the Joe Gibbs teams, there wasn't really a big expectation on them initially. And I was very young, so it's hard for me to really remember. I need some people older than me to really remind me of it. But there wasn't. And through those years, they built this brotherhood, this culture. They allowed people to be themselves. The personalities came out. They played for each other. And
those teams stayed together a lot longer. It was no free agency early during the beginning of those those runs.
But if you go and look at actually like who's in the Hall of Fame from those teams, it's fewer people than you would think for what was basically a dynasty.
Right.
Like there are no quarterbacks that are in the Hall of Fame from any of those teams. Riggo, one of the Hogs, it should be two, but one of them is in the Hall of Fame. You know, their great returner should be in the Hall of Fame, but isn't. Art Monk, one receiver.
And 2 receivers. No, receiver.
Art Monk.
Yeah, Art Monk
and
D. Green. Yeah.
Darrell Green is in the Hall of Fame. That's it. Of a dynasty group of, and then just think about this year. I hate doing the comparisons because their teams won a lot. Super Bowls, they're in the playoffs every year. The 91 team was maybe the best team this team's ever had. This is the best season I've ever been a part of covering it professionally. I've never experienced anything like this because of what they're doing, how they're doing it, how together they are, and obviously all these incredible moments that they're giving us. And it feels very unexpected. I'm always optimistic. I didn't expect this. This is beyond. It's come together quicker, and it reminds me of that time because there were no expectations on these guys either. And then I start to look around the roster and I go, you know what? Dorrance Armstrong's been around the block for a long time. So has Dante Fowler. So has Cleveland Farrell. So has Olamide Zaccheaus. So like all these people that they brought in that everyone just kind of described as, well, they're just baselining the roster. These are veterans and in some cases have been on really, really good high-level teams, and somehow it's come together very quickly here.
Yeah, you bring in Allegretti. He was
on
Super
a
Bowl
winning
champion. He's been on
team.
Super Bowl champion, 2 or 3
Yes.
championships. Biadish.
Their offense was top 5.
Yeah, they've been winning a lot. So you bring in the right type of people. Obviously, Quinn knew Biadish. He knew Dorrance Armstrong. You knew Dante Fowler. He knew Olamide Zaccheaus. So having that familiarity with those guys helps. But to do it in this manner I was on the 99 Rams, and last week we talked about that, and you did we did a comparison of those two teams. We didn't turn the roster over to that magnitude. We had a lot of key acquisitions that season with that offseason with the trade of Marshall Faulk and drafting Torrey Holt. But a lot of the guys on that team had been there for 2 or 3 years. So it wasn't like you didn't have 30 new guys on that team, and it came together so quickly to you. Like you said, this is unprecedented what they're doing. We talk so much about the offense and that Hail Mary. We got to talk about that defense, though, Brown, and what they did in that game. They held a Bears team that came into that game averaging almost 28 points over their last 4 games to a goose egg in the first half.
That's right.
That defense was outstanding.
They were outstanding. This was going to be an interesting game plan. I don't know how you felt about it, but I felt like we were walking into a low-scoring, physical game. Let's see, because Caleb Williams and that offense, they got big-name receivers, but they're not connecting. They're not timed up. It's a missing link for their offense that I think eventually will probably come. And when it does, I think they're going to be extremely dangerous. But it's not there yet. DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, Keenan Allen, collectively, were averaging about 100 to 110 yards a game.
Yeah.
Those 3 players averaging collectively 110 yards a game. They had no downfield passing game. Not yet. It's not timed up right. So I expected, what was Joe Witt going to do about this? Is he going to put his corners on an island, knowing that the Bears haven't been hitting these types of plays, or is he concerned that he doesn't like these matchups, and will he back off? And he didn't.
Yeah, I'm looking at Odunze, Allen, and DJ Moore. They combined for 7 catches. Let's call it 80. It's about 117 yards, maybe.
That's what they've been averaging coming into this.
Yeah.
None of those receivers,
but not
one of them is broken out.
Yeah, they weren't. This one, they didn't have
one
any
big
impact.
play down the field. The one DJ Moore play in the second half was the one big play down the field. They have no downfield passing game yet, and I reiterate, yet, because it probably will happen for them, but it's not happening now.
DJ Moore, 2 catches for 27 yards. His long was 27. So he had 1 catch that went for 0 yards on the fourth down, 4th and 1. And we all know what he did to us last year.
That's right.
230 yards on 8 receptions a season ago. The secondary, how they've stepped up over the last couple of weeks and just played outstanding football. Mikey Sanders still continues to just make plays out of this world. And, I think the pass rush was really good, but then they're chasing around kind of a rabbit and Caleb Williams, and he made some plays, and we'll talk about him a little bit later on. But, there was some in that first half, the defense was outstanding.
Yes, they held them to 90 total yards.
Yes.
Coming off a week where they'd given up 180 total, some much better offense that they were facing with much higher level players, that weren't missing a bunch of people, that weren't playing with their backup quarterback. 90 total yards. Swift had come in averaging 134 over the last few games. They really started to profile him and Cole Kmet.
Right.
Cole Kmet made 1 catch in the game? We're starting to see this now, that they're able to eliminate some of the best players and forcing them to go in opposite directions. In the Bears' case, they should have a lot of answers to those. They don't currently have it. But Kmet and Swift are the 2 that had been profiled by the Bears because they've slimmed it down. They're running the ball more. They don't have a downfield passing game. Kmet was erased by this defense. And Swift, until that one mistake in that big run, they had bottled him up too.
Yeah. I feel like I need to mention the linebackers too when we talked about the coverage on Kmet. I thought Frankie Louisville was really good. Bobby Wagner was outstanding. He took away a lot of – they had some plays designed where Kmet was the primary target, but the coverage, they took it away quickly, and so that forced Caleb to hold on to the football, allowed the pressure to get to him, allowed him to either get sacked or throw some incompletions, things like that. But there was one play where it was early in the game. They had Kmet ran a 5-yard stick route, and Frankie Louisville read it like he was in their playbook. And Caleb, he jumped it. Caleb didn't throw it. If he would have threw that ball, it was going to be a house call the other way. And Frankie jumps up like, man, he was so upset that Caleb Williams didn't throw the ball.
There was I thought the epitome of the first half was the play where Chicago was in field goal range and they got a 15-yard sack on Caleb Williams, backing him out, forcing them to punt. Louvu should have had a sack. Williams was able to get out of it, but they continued to finish the play. Deron Payne makes it. Deron Payne now, by virtue of that sack, was over 1, so he's had multiple sacks. So remember in the preseason when everyone said, where's the pass rush going to come from? They have 7 players with multiple sacks now, which was second in the NFL. They have figured out a way without a premier, high-priced, name the guy you like, Crosby, Bosa, Myles Garrett, whoever it may be. They don't have one of those, but they're getting it done anyway.
Yeah, no, and the way you do that, scheme and also working together, they've been able to scheme up guys with line games and stunts like that, things like that. Louisville's been able to rush off the edge. Dante Fowler, man, this kid, man, he's not a kid because he's been in the league for a long time. He's been able to get after the quarterback, rush the edge, blitzing Bobby and Frankie, creating havoc. But they also on the back end, though, the coverage has been a lot better, so it's forced quarterbacks to hold on to the ball a lot longer. Like I just mentioned, there were times where Caleb, his primary read wasn't there because the coverage was so tight, so sticky. Yeah. He had to come off that hold on to the football, and that allowed the rush to get to him, and it either they were able to get pressure on him, sack him, or force him into an incompletion.
The other person who really popped up to me yesterday, I need to rewatch to really see it. Quan Martin was everywhere yesterday, yeah. And I think that part of this was Washington knew Chicago is not hitting on a downfield passing game. Go ahead and try it. The incompletions are ghastly. They're not close. It's not like they're near missing. He's overthrowing people by 10 yards. They're not on the same page. I think some of it is he extends these plays in a way that the timing is off. They're just not kind of there yet. And that's why Quan Martin was near the line of scrimmage a lot. He was making a lot of tackles. His physicality was felt yesterday, too.
Quan has been, from the first game of the season against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, his tackling has been outstanding all season long. And you talk about making plays, and there was a deep ball where they tried to connect on a Dunze down the field, and I think it was Igbenogany was in on him man-to-man, so he had great coverage and underneath, but Quan was the post safety and was all over the top of it, and if it had been a better throw, an accurate throw, Quan would have intercepted it, but to your point, how the incompletions were ghastly incompletion, there was probably 3 or 4 yards beyond where Dunze was, because a better throw, Quan intercepts that ball, but he made some plays. Johnny Newton was a guy who stepped up, was disruptive in the game, obviously recovering that fumble. He kind of had let's call it a coming out party in a sense.
Yeah.
You know, he's thrust into the lineup as a starter now. But Johnny Newton, he did some things. I thought Phil Mathis, there's times where, and Joe Witt talked about him, Joe Witt Jr. talked about him, a lot of his stuff doesn't go on the stat sheet. He's holding double teams, but even yesterday, there was a time where he defeated his block, got off of it, and made tackles. He got greedy, is what we call it.
Yeah.
And when you take on a blocker, get rid of him, and make a tackle, he got greedy.
How about that play call where they handed the ball off to a tackle in a game where they had 7 points? They had done, and they're running a play to try to clown us.
Yeah.
Are you really?
Yeah. Shane Waldron, who was here at one point in time, that wasn't his best moment.
No.
That wasn't his best moment with that play call.
12-7 game in the fourth quarter, you're handing the ball off to a fullback who's a tackle eligible?
And that fullback had no...
I mean y'all do you.
Do you know... So, case in point, we talked about Jayden's heart rate and how he's just, so his heart rate is so low in any moment. That offensive lineman heart rate had to be racing so high. He was like, I'm about to get this ball on the 1 yard line. Probably never had a carry in his life. He doesn't even get his arms, the pocket up high enough to even get the ball. It hits his arm. The ball propels, 2-3 yards forward.
Yes.
Like his heart rate had to be, 200 over 200, whatever it was. I mean, he wasn't ready for that moment.
No, he wasn't. They mishandled the exchange, whatever. They blew that. These two teams are very similar. I think I came in expecting the unexpected here. I thought they were going to be in a physical close game. I thought it was going to be a big-time show-me game. The window they put it in, obviously America's going to see it, right? There was a lot to this. Mm-hmm. And the Bears had a cornerback on a Hail Mary waving at the crowd.
Yeah.
They decided to hand the ball off to a tackle who's in an I formation in a game that's 12-7. They had a number of personal foul penalties. A lot of this is about Washington being buttoned up, brotherhood, practicing together, showcase game. Mm-hmm. And the other team, it was supposed to be similar. That's not a very buttoned up operation to do a number of the things that they did. Those little mistakes across the board are the reason why they lost in the end. And we can come up with all the things that Washington did wrong as to why the score was what it was. But in Chicago, in two key moments on their own goal line on opposite ends of the field, they got one cornerback not paying attention, tipping the ball to our guy. And on the other end of the field, they're handing the ball off to a tackle. They got no one to blame but themselves, honestly.
Because execution under pressure.
Yes.
Those things matter. Can you execute under pressure? Bears, no.
No.
They're not there yet.
So we saw somebody who did. So for Big Fletch's heavyweight championship, Commander Belt.
Oh, we need
Commander
the belt.
Championship Belt.
Oh, we got the belt.
I mean, I think this is an obvious choice. But last week, Dante Fowler had a pick six.
Okay.
Huge game. He's the reigning champion. We're matching him up against the quarterback, Jayden Daniels.
Oh, man. All right, Fowler. Dante Fowler. So, Dante, reigning heavyweight champion. Got to beat the man. Dante just had one tackle in the game. That's not to say he didn't have an impact in that game. But he on the stat sheet, he only had 1 tackle.
Everybody knows where you're going with this. You don't really need the preamble's not necessary, but go ahead.
The contender for the belt, Jayden Daniels. Give you Jayden's numbers. 21 for 38, 326 yards passing, 52 yards rushing. He also had 1 TD passing. So, I think this is a blowout. This was a 12-round domination by Jayden.
I think it's more of a Mike Tyson first-round knockout.
First round knockout.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
You know, this is we threw in the towel. Dante, you're gonna have to go back to the training session. The new heavyweight champion of the world, or Big Fletcher's heavyweight champion of the world, Jayden, California Cool Daniels.
Congratulations, Jayden. Yet another belt for you today. Let's talk about Jayden and Caleb, because we didn't know all week, right? We didn't know.
Yeah.
The other thing we haven't even talked about, he played hurt and had his first
Didn't look hurt at all.
He didn't. It didn't affect his speed whatsoever.
No.
Didn't affect his agility whatsoever. And then at the end of the game, I'm sure he wasn't feeling great, asked to throw the ball 66 yards in the air, able to do that too. So we did get Jayden versus Caleb. I do want to point out, Caleb Williams, who went to Gonzaga here, bought like 150 tickets and had their team come out to the game, which I thought was really cool to have the Purple Eagles out. I thought it was a really nice gesture. And I do want to say this too, as a local, like, I'm rooting for him. Like, I hope he has a great career. He was amazing. Grew up in Prince George's County, played at Gonzaga, oddly won a championship on a Hail Mary. Like, won a WCAC championship on a Hail Mary.
I didn't know that.
He did. Well, and, of course, had an incredible college career, won a Heisman Trophy. I'm rooting for him. Like,
yes.
I think this is a different – Chicago probably feels a little differently because they're the ones that have to sit there and go, did we make the right choice? It's my opinion that they both did, that they're both going to be very, very good
I think it worked out the way it was supposed to work out for both of those quarterbacks. And when we look at this, and we'll look at these guys' careers, and hopefully they both stay healthy and whole, you know, decade and a half from now, we're looking at like, man, these two have been battling out to represent the NFC in Super Bowls multiple times, and both these teams and are extremely happy with their choices. As it relates to yesterday, these two quarterbacks just kind of, I know they didn't play against each other, but when you look at impact on a game, who had the better game, I don't think there's any question that it was Jayden.
No. I don't want to be disrespectful because I do like Caleb Williams a lot. I really hope he has a great career, but Jayden Daniels is miles ahead of him. Miles. But this also goes back to, I've never seen any rookie quarterback have a season like this. He's miles ahead of almost every rookie quarterback I've ever seen. So it's almost unfair. He's a unicorn.
And you think, and the fact that he was able to do this without really practicing this week.
That's right.
He went in the game. We didn't see rust on his throws or anything. Like, typically, if somebody misses a week of practice, and for the fans that are watching, viewers that are looking at this, you say, oh, it's not that big of a deal. It's a big deal, especially for the quarterback, for you to not be able to really have full speed reps in a week of practice, in that game plan, and you get in there and you go in that game and you are dealing with a rib injury, and you're throwing the football around and you're making plays like he did, like he didn't miss a beat. And this was against the number 4 ranked defense in the.
They were top 5 in both scoring and yards.
Yes, scoring and yards. So he did this against a top 5 defense in the National Football League with bad rib and very little practice, and he's a rookie. As it relates to Caleb, I thought Caleb throwing the football was inaccurate.
Yes, but he had shown that.
His biggest plays happened when he was able to run the ball. You know, heard of some scrambles, things like that. But, you know, as far as throwing the football, there's a lot to be desired. There was a lot to be desired in yesterday's game.
Yeah, for Jayden, where I thought the lack of practice showed up, There was a miscommunication with him and McLaurin once where he threw a ball to what should have been like an outside back shoulder, and McLaurin was running down the field.
Yeah.
Well, they didn't practice together all week, and we haven't seen a lot of that. I saw a little bit more inaccuracy from him than I'm accustomed to, and I attribute that probably to ribs. Like, he didn't practice all week, and I bet he's not feeling too great, and that motion doesn't feel great. It was not a lot of it, just a little bit of it. He also had a couple of throws. He had one, and this is why the score should have never looked this way. He made an unbelievable throw to Luke McCaffrey early in the first half, where McCaffrey had 1 foot out of bounds in the corner of the end zone. He's being chased by Montez Sweat, chucks it up in the corner where only McCaffrey can get it. It lands literally in the back corner. He has both feet down. That's touchdown. That was an amazing, amazing throw that was an incompletion. And then he had the one to Ertz, where Ertz couldn't bring it in. It was another touchdown.
Yeah.
So but it was a little more inaccuracy than I've seen. With Caleb, I'll just go back to what I've said and what I saw going in. When they get their downfield passing game going, and I will say when, because I believe it will happen, that's when they're going to get really dangerous. But their timing's off. Part of it is he holds the ball a long time. He tries to do Mahomesy-like things. He's capable of them. He's got an incredible arm, but if you all aren't on the same page and he's just running around back there like a cat, what are the chances that you guys are going to end up being able to make those plays work? There's a smoothness to what Daniels does when he's moving and extending a play. There isn't when Caleb does it. It's amazing to watch, and I think over time, it's going to have amazing results. You see this with Mahomes, Josh Allen, too. I saw a lot of this early with Josh Allen, where he'd be able to escape, and then he's running around. You can't get him. He chucks it down the field, but the receiver's like, I didn't know what you were going to do, man. And I think that's what I feel like here with him, that it's just early, and it's going to get dangerous. But with those receivers, to have the numbers they have, it's an indictment somewhat of him that it's not there yet, and they need to simplify this more to get everybody engaged and on the same page.
You mentioned simplify. We talked about this a lot during the broadcast. It felt like they asked him to do too much in that game.
Yes.
Everything was a kind of check with me type of deal based off what the pre-snap look was from our defense. And the defense did a great job of disguising, holding look. There was a lot of what you call cover two shells. There was late rotation. So he's trying to figure out whether it was a run play or a pass play, trying to get in the perfect play every single time. And it was just too much, I believe, on his plate. I know they had a bye week, so sometimes during that, when you have a bye, you try to add two things instead of peeling things back, and maybe you think, okay, yeah, offense is, kind of playing a lot better. They, like I mentioned, they have been averaging 28 points per game their last 4 games. So, maybe we can add more on his plate. We got a bye week. He's ready to take on more. But in hindsight, they probably gave him too much responsibility instead of just going out there, running their offense and kind of doing those types of things. And, yeah, you'll have some checks, especially if you see pressures coming one way, things like that. But it was every single play. Yeah. He was making checks and doing these different things at the line of scrimmage where it was probably too much.
Yeah. He looks like a rookie. Mm-hmm. Every rookie looks like this. I'm bullish he's going to be good. It's just going to take time. We have someone who's ahead of the curve. And so when it's compared to what's going on here, it looks off. And so I think for them, it's probably tough because they're sitting there going, did we take the right guy? And I'll just go back to, I think both of these teams have the right guy. It's just going to take him and their offense a little bit longer. It's clicked here for Jayden and Cliff. Mm-hmm. Not in every way, but it's clicked here. As for whether this is a rivalry, I'm hoping it becomes one. I think it would be a good one for both of these cities, for both of these towns. It harkens back to the 80s when they were both really great. These are great fan bases that have been waiting for their guys to come along and be this again. These are still Chicago really is a defensive mindset team. They have that in place. They have a lot of those guys under contract. They're going to be good for a while over there. We have a defensive coaching staff that is ready to kind of build that back up. Lost in all the glory years of the Redskins were how good their defenses were all of those years with Dexter Manley and Dave Butts and Charles Mann and Monty Coleman and Neil Olkowitz and Darryl Green and all the great players that played here. Everyone remembers Art Monk and the Hogs and
Right.
Riggo. They don't remember how great the defenses were
Dexter
those
Manley.
years. Like,
Shout out.
I'm hoping this is coming back, and I do hope this is the first of many between these two quarterbacks.
Yeah, no, I saw Dexter at the game yesterday, and I gave him a fist bump. Don't ever shake Dexter's hand if you meet him. Give him a fist bump. Think about this, Bram. 2 out of the last 3 times we played the Bears these last 3 seasons, they've all come down to the last play.
That's right.
2 out of the last 3 times.
That's right. The one in Chicago ended with Darnell Mooney stopping like a fingernail away from the goal line.
Oh, yeah. And St. Jude's made a nice play, nice pass breakup. This, I think it is. This little heated rivalry.
It's the way it should be with the number 1 and number 2 overall picks and their quarterbacks for quarterback-starved franchises who have glory eras and incredible histories. It should be that way. And I'm hoping that that's what we get here.
I think when it's all said and done, both teams will be extremely pleased with their quarterbacks.
Yeah, 100%. All right, so let's get to Tell the Truth Monday here. Okay.
Tell the truth.
All right, and let's start on the offensive side of the ball because there is some things, and it's interesting that they're playing the Giants this week because everyone remembers week 2, 7 times in the red zone, 7 field goals. Yesterday, similar issues, probably different reasons. You were talking a lot in the booth yesterday about the style of defense that the Bears played in the red zone and why that gave Washington troubles yesterday.
Yeah. So what the Bears run is what you call a lot of cover 2 defense in the red zone. We played it here during the best years under Greg Williams and Greg Blosh, and we were top 10 defense every year. One year we were top 4. We were 4th ranked defense, but during those years we were always either the best or one of the best in the red zone. It was because of that cover 2. We called it red 2, and the windows are a lot tighter. You're in sync with your linebackers and reading the quarterback, reading routes. You kind of got an idea because you play the same defense all the time. You know how teams are going to try to attack you. They have a 6'5" middle linebacker who takes up a lot of range, and Tremaine Edmonds, he's outstanding. So it's hard to throw balls into him, against him, things like that. And those safeties, those corners, they're just so in sync. And then you got a pass rush that can get pressure on the quarterback. It makes it extremely difficult to operate against that type of scheme. If you're going to kind of crack the code, you're going to probably have to do some unconventional things, maybe little screens, draws, play action passes on first down. You can't run your typical, hey, run on first, think you're going to throw it on second, throw it on third. You're going to have problems dealing with that type of offense that type of defense because they're so disciplined and they play it so well.
So the Giants were different, but they struggled against them.
Well, the Giants run that similar type of defense in the red zone. They run the same defense. So that defense is something we're going to have. Cleveland ran it on the interception that Awuzie JOK got when he intercepted.
That's right.
The same similar defense. So we're going to have to be able to crack that code of that cover 2 red zone defense. We're going to have to come up with a scheme to
So when you played
that code.
in that, what was the problem that an offense presented to you that gave you guys problems?
One thing that if you get, let's say, 3 receivers to one side, back offset, weak side, and X receiver, a lot of times you're reading those 2 linebackers, what we call outside linebacker nickel, they're reading the quarterback. So say I'm looking strong side to the 3 receivers set, and Brady cracked the code against the Colts with this. He would look strong side with the notion, knowing he's coming back weak side to that back on a check down. So he'd get the 2 linebackers to run towards, that 3 receivers side, then he come quickly to the check down, and then they get into the end zone.
So you're looking at maybe Eckler?
Yeah. Eckler
As
coming out of
a potential solution here in the red zone?
Solution. You also, maybe you can line Ertz or even a receiver at the number 3 spot, get him, try to isolate him on your Mike backer. Not everybody has a Mike Backer like a Tremaine Edmonds. He was outstanding in coverage yesterday. So you maybe try to isolate, get a matchup against a lesser athlete or your better athlete against their Mike Backer, things like that. So there's ways to attack it. You can run that back on like what we call a sucker route, sit him down, get the safety to jump, then you run a dig behind him with the weak side. Those are ways to attack it as well.
Okay.
So there are a couple plays, and I know they'll get to those plays, but they're gonna have to rep the heck out of it to crack that code.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is the difference here in a couple of these games. They could have lost either the Giants or the Bears games because of red zone execution.
Yeah,
those scores would not have looked like that had they executed in the red zone earlier in the games. So we'll see. All right, the other thing I want to talk about on offense for Tell the Truth Monday for sure is for the first time, we saw Jayden wear his emotions on his sleeve a couple of times, and it was over substitution patterns, timing of it, how late some things were coming in. So there's some work to be done there between figuring out how to get everybody on the same page because they're playing up tempo, and you would think that would lead to them having this kind of rhythm, but it got slowed down a little bit, partially by the refs allowing substitutions, and the Bears were playing some games with that yesterday. And also, Washington wasn't totally on the same page, and you could see it. So there's some stuff to work out there, too.
Yeah, definitely, because what it ended up doing, because of the substitution, late substitution, however you want to call it, whatever the operation was, there wasn't enough time for Jayden, once the referees got out of the way and allowed them to run the play, there wasn't enough time. One time it was like he was getting to the line of scrimmage with 3 seconds or whatever to start his cadence, and they had to burn 2 timeouts in the second half, and that it was a third down play late in the drive before Chicago got their go-ahead touchdown run, where Jayden, we thought he got the yard to gain on the scramble. They marked him short, a half inch short or whatever the case may be, a couple inches short.
I want to ask Dan Quinn about that this week because it looked clear to me that was a bad spot.
But if we only had 1 timeout left because we had to burn 2 timeouts earlier because of late substitutions or whatever the case may be. I know if Dan had at least 2 timeouts, he would have challenged that spot. I feel like he would have. But when him only having 1 timeout, he couldn't challenge it because it was enough evidence to where maybe he did, maybe he didn't, but it was worth the challenge if you have 2 timeouts. Him knowing, hey, I only got 1 timeout, I may need this timeout later on, which they end up needing.
Yeah.
He just couldn't call the timeout. He couldn't challenge it with only 1 timeout.
I've seen this the last couple of weeks now. The Bears really did it yesterday a couple of times where the second Washington makes that substitution, they need to be allowed the opportunity to do it, but they slow rolled it.
Yeah.
They took a couple of guys and let them take their time getting onto the field.
Right.
And then the referee standing in front of the center, not allowing the snap to go, and all of a sudden the play clock's rolling down. It's a tactic, but it's legal. And when you are going to do these things, if you don't do them, I think this is Jayden's point a little bit why he was getting upset. If you don't do it quickly, they don't have to run somebody onto the field. They have to be given adequate time to get the substitution in. And when you send in Big Andrew Billings, who's taking his good old time coming onto the field, all of a sudden the play clock's running down. So I will give Chicago credit for using a tactic
why'd you have
yesterday.
to say Big Andrew Billings?
Well,
he was like on the Sunday stroll. Huh?
Teams find little ways. Like a lot of times you'll hear about teams that like, is that an injury or not? When someone sits down, it happens in the college game a lot.
Type of stuff.
No, but in the college game you see this a lot. The college game you see them slow teams down. They get accused of it all the time. Or you see a guy sit down. This was a tactic that was being used yesterday that I could see other teams looking at going, we got to slow them down a little bit. And if they substitute late, we're going to take our good old time sending somebody out there, and the ref's going to stand in front of Biotish and not let him snap it.
And that's where, during the offseason, the competition committee, and I'm sure Dan, and they're probably sending this stuff to the NFL saying, hey, this is what's happening. In the league, they might send out a memo to these different teams and saying, hey, you're going to have to try to get on the field as quick as possible, or we're only going to hold them for 2 seconds, or whatever the case may be. I don't know, but I'm sure Dan Quinn is sending stuff to the league and these plays saying, hey, this is what's happening. Because it's happened multiple times.
Yeah.
Where teams are taking their
sweet old
time,
Yeah.
getting their substitutions in, and it's slowing us down where we can't. Part of our scheme is the no huddle. We lead the National Football League in no huddle plays.
Yeah.
58% of our plays, our snaps are no huddle. The next closest going into that ball games was the Chicago Bears. They're at 28%. So this is a part of our identity, and you're, taking one of our bullets away, so to speak.
Yeah. So we'll have to see how they handle that. I'll be interested to talk to them about that and the substitution patterns and how they're kind of thinking about it. Obviously, I think red zone issues is a big thing to think about. It's hard to preview the Giants because they're playing tonight at the time that we're taping. So their most recent game will be tonight against Pittsburgh. But we can go back to week 2 a little bit here.
Yes.
Number 1, how do they deal with Malik Neighbors differently? He had a humongous game against them in week 2.
Yeah, you once you get an opportunity to play against a guy, you kind of you develop a game plan. You get a game plan. Now, in that game, I think it was Michael Davis was guarding him, if I remember correctly. Yeah, Michael Davis was guarding him a lot. With Davis, he hasn't played a lot in regular defense, so I feel like we're better on the perimeter now, the back end, covering guys. We communicate a lot better. We're just better. We're playing with more confidence. And part of the reason you're allowed to play with more confidence is because you have a better understanding of the scheme. So I feel like we'll be better against neighbors because they have they're playing with more confidence. Pass rushes is a lot better too. I'm trying to remember that game. I didn't call it. You and Logan called that game.
It was red zone problems. It was 7 field goals.
They're down some of their pass rushers. I think Kayvon Thibodeau, he's on IR.
Yep.
One problem that still remains is Sexy Dexy.
Yeah. Yeah.
There was Dexter Lawrence.
Yeah. Lawrence Burns still is formidable up front. They've been had on the back end for sure. So I want to see how this goes. But, the first game, they could have scored 40 on them.
Right, yeah.
They could have. It was red zone issues was everything. And that also goes back to the penalties that we had talked about, or just the alignment, the issues. Mm-hmm. They had a lot of pre-snap penalties in that Giants game that backed them up. Yep. And it hurt them in that first game. And 3rd and goal from the 3 and 3rd and goal from the 8 are 2 entirely different things. And that happened multiple times against the Giants in the first game. This is obviously it's an all new era and it's an all new team, an all new year. They've had problems with this team. So I'm not taking anything for granted. I mean, the record against them over the last 5-10 years is awful. So I know they won the first one, and they very similar to yesterday, honestly. If it wasn't for red zone mistakes, that game wouldn't have been close in week 2. And same thing happened yesterday. Washington should have been up 24-0 after 3.
Right.
That's what the score should have been yesterday, and they weren't. And all of a sudden, you're in a game with somebody like that.
And the Giants, they're feeling like, hey, if our kicker doesn't get hurt in that game, Graham Gano, who former player here, former teammate of mine, they're going to say, hey, if he doesn't get injured in that ball game, they feel like they won that game. So the great thing about it, even though we're on the high of winning that game yesterday on the Hail Mary, there's enough things that we didn't do well enough to be able to say, you know what, we celebrate that for 24 hours. Now it's time to put it to rest, and we got to get ready to play our best game against the New York Giants, who, depending on the outcome of tonight's game, you never know where they're going to be at and from a division race and all that. So they're going to be fired up about playing that game regardless. So we need to be ready to play it. And one thing I don't worry about is our coaching staff having these guys ready to play. Yeah. Because, again, because of the Tell the Truth Monday, where they're honest with these guys, hey, yeah, we won this ball game, but this, and that, we got to be better.
I've already seen examples of this. I liked what I heard after Cincinnati. They had their first big marquee showcase win. What'd they do? Put their head down, killed Arizona, right? Yep. After their big marquee first loss, Ravens, I loved what I heard out of the locker room. Turn around, blow out Carolina. I have no reason to believe at all that this team is going to be smelling themselves this week, even though maybe we are. We're everywhere, London. I don't know if you've noticed.
We're viral.
Has anyone seen the video yet? I haven't seen the video yet. Have you seen it?
I've seen it.
Okay. Am I going to be embarrassed?
No.
Okay, all right.
You're gonna love it. I haven't
haven't
seen the
seen it
video
yet.
with the sound synced up yet.
I haven't seen the video yet.
Yeah,
The booth cam will come out.
I've seen the booth cam. I've seen the
haven't seen it
preview of
yet.
it. Oh,
Yeah, I'll get it to you. By the time this podcast comes out, you'll have it. So
You're
you can
gonna
put
love
out.
it. Listen.
My favorite thing for the video, real quick, is like the way you guys had the camera set up. You could see a little bit of the crowd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's probably a little kid there, maybe 8 or 9, losing his mind. And I'm
yeah.
like, that's a core moment. That's a core memory, because I've been a fan of this team for a long time, and I never had that as a kid, like
Right.
a moment like this.
Yeah.
Maybe Santana, but that was in Dallas. But
Yeah.
just watching the reaction of the fans with you guys is incredible.
It's just, I'm so fortunate as a kid to have the teams that we had here. And we didn't have ones like that very often because that's so unusual. But we had a lot of those on a weekly, annual basis. And you've seen, just look at the reaction around this community for the last month or two to really yesterday. Like, look what it does for the community, how it galvanizes everybody. This has been a sleeping giant waiting to get back on board. And I think after what's happened over the last couple of months, if you're not believing your eyes at this point, there is nothing that can convince you anymore.
Yeah. No, this is a special time. This is a special time. We're gonna enjoy this moment for another. So we can enjoy it till Wednesday. They got to push it. They got to start back getting ready for the Giants tomorrow. So I can't wait to see these guys play this Sunday.
What do you want to call this thing? Is it Raise Hail?
Raise Hail Mary.
Raise Hail Mary. I saw the Washington Post with Hail Victory, which I thought was really good. I like Hail Maryland. Do you like that one?
No.
Maybe?
No. What about Hail Noah?
Hail Noah is good.
I like Hail Noah.
We'll take your recommend.
I like
we'll
Hail
take
Noah
submissions
because-
if you got something better than any of those.
Hail Noah.
Yeah.
Now, I can see, especially because we've been doing a lot of the Raise Hail kind of, branding with the team. So Raise Hail Mary.
Raise Hail has a connotation of, the Hail Mary has the connotation. It's a little bit of the,
Hail
that
Noah.
going on right
Hail
now.
Noah.
Yeah.
Hail Noah is it.
Hail Noah?
It become that. I think that's what it's going to stick at.
He was
Hail
funny.
Noah.
He was funny too after the game. He was just kind of like, I don't know. Ball bounced in my hands. And we're like, this
right
is
place, right time.
Yeah, this is, I don't know, singularly one of the greatest moments in the franchise's history. And the quarterback's like, I don't know, man. I just chucked it up. And the receiver's like, yeah, it just bounced in my
Noah
hands.
Brown. He will never pay for another meal in the DMV.
No.
Never.
No.
Never.
No. It's true. That was an amazing, amazing moment. And we got a bunch of games to go and a 6-2 record and a lead in the NFC East as we hit kind of the halfway point. So things are beyond looking up. And apparently them up there are looking down on this team right now.
Let's keep it going.
Let's keep it going. All right, that'll do it for the booth review. We'll see you next week after the Giants.